Nestled in along the coast of misty cliffs, Northern Ireland finds itself in a unique position on the island. It's a country where the wind whispers tales of the past and men whisper tales of whiskey. From the bustling streets of Belfast to the rugged cliffs of the coast, the history of Northern Ireland, despite its charm, is riddled with pain. The rolling hills echo a song of resilience, a duet between history and beauty that tries to heal the cuts of religious trauma. Born from the Troubles was a country of painful memories and the type of wounds that are passed down for generations. In fact, religion is so entwined with society that it begins at the primary level. Protestant Christian teachings are legally required to be taught in every primary school through the RE curriculum. Religious education is important, but law-mandated Christian indoctrination has no place in schools. Because let's be honest, in Northern Ireland, what religion you are does matter, and at times has nothing to do with God at all. With the current laws, kids are forced to subscribe to the same institutions of ideology that have torn the island apart for centuries. It's time for change within the RE curriculum, and the parents of Northern Ireland have finally had enough. How do parents actually feel about this? I spoke with Laura and Joe to get their take on the matter. Laura is a member of organizations who have spoken out on the issue, like Parents for Inclusive Education, as well as Humanist UK. Both her and her husband Joe are currently teachers in Northern Ireland, yet they still believe a revision to the RE curriculum is desperately needed.
What we're talking about is a country where two different versions of Christianity are in charge of the schooling. And if you're not part of that, then you're sort of, for that aspect of school life, you're not welcome. And yet we also talk about schools being inclusive, being diverse, but that's not being demonstrated there.
There was one particular assembly I was sitting in with my primary 2 children, so they're like age 5, 6, and this preacher woman led the assembly. She asked everyone in the room to pray for people who have strayed from God or who don't believe in God, because we want to save them from a life of eternal damnation. So that made me, as a grown-up person, feel about that size. And after the assembly, my teaching assistant took the class and I went off and had a big cry in the toilets, because it was so upsetting. It can be really isolating to be what you think might be the one person in the school to stand up and say, actually, I'm not a Christian, and this RE curriculum, I'm uncomfortable teaching it, or I'm uncomfortable sitting in assemblies where people are preaching to children about Christianity. Do you find usually that once you do start speaking about it, other teachers say, oh, I feel exactly the same, I'm so glad you said that. They don't sweep all the other religions and worldviews under the carpet and pretend they don't exist.
It confirms really shallow identities that has no place in education, because it's not religious, it's not teaching about religions, it's religious teaching. So it just shouldn't be in schools at all. And if we can change our education system so that it isn't run along religious lines, which just seems absolutely absurd, then we can change everything. I mean, education is the silver bullet. That's how we change everything.
And so it is. But how do the students feel about this? I spoke with Tiernan, who did all of his schooling in Northern Ireland and graduated in 2019.
So religion is mandatory, RE would be mandatory. It absolutely does indoctrinate you. You know, you get funneled into, say, a Catholic school or a Protestant school whenever you turn 11 and go into secondary school. So that obviously has a massive impact, because you could grow up with absolutely no, prejudices, no whatsoever forming, and then walk right into the school where it is heavily pushed. If they did take out church and school, at least, you wouldn't be sat in a educative setting being taught this person is different than you. There should be no indoctrination in the schools, but it's one of the things you just kind of like throw your hands up and realise it's still the north of Ireland. It's still bad.
But what if that mindset isn't good enough for parents who want a better future for their kids? I met with the founder of Parents for Inclusive Education. She's a journalist, an activist, and most importantly, a mother.
So my name is Virginia and I am Spanish, but I've been living in Northern Ireland for 10 years. I have 2 children. Nora is 6 years old, and Eric is 7, and they both go to a controlled school. They do talk and they come back and say things like some kid has told them that they're gonna go to hell because they don't believe in God, or Mom, I think I'm the only person in the class that I don't believe in God. I would never want any kid, Christian, Muslim, atheist, anything, feel like their beliefs and their families' opinions are being put in question. I feel like Christian children will also benefit massively from understanding that their beliefs, they're very respectable and they're theirs, and other people have others, and there's a space in the society for all of us to have our own without having to choose and without having to be yours is a lie, mine is a fact. And I think that it's a very uncontroversial opinion. In religious education within the school, I could just withdraw them. I haven't really used this withdrawal right or option because I never feel quite reassured that the alternatives that are given are not going to make my kids feel excluded. It's very sad to have a whole education system that only respects human rights by excluding children. I think it should not be controversial that we will aim for an education in which we don't need to other and exclude other children in order for them to feel 100% included in their schools and in their societies. Even within the current law, which I don't particularly love, but even within the current law, there is a space to do much better than we are currently doing.
Virginia isn't the only parent who feels this way. In 2022, a Belfast father sued the Department of Education on the basis of religious discrimination in a case called JR 87. He actually won, but the Department of Education appealed the ruling, and then they won on the basis that the right to withdraw, or to pull your child out of class entirely, is a sufficient remedy, and therefore the RE curriculum is not a form of indoctrination. The problem with this ruling is that it fails to acknowledge the risk of stigmatization of non-Christian children, and it naturally creates social groups within early childhood development that are inherently xenophobic. The lawyer on the case from Phoenix Law is currently in the process of appealing the case to the London High Court, so there's still hope. I spoke with Nuruddin, whose parents opted him out, but it was unfortunately at his own expense.
I went to grammar school in South Belfast, and I graduated in 2009. I was raised as a Muslim. It's kind of a Christian education or no education on religion. My parents opted me out, so everyone would go to RE class and I would not. I didn't want to be left out. Obviously things happen in class that the rest of the kids talk about, and I just wasn't really part of that. I would go to the library, the school library, and sit and do homework, revise, read books. I would have liked to learn about other religions and be with my classmates at the time, rather than just sitting in the library, sometimes alone, sometimes with one other person. I think better communication between what I wanted, what my mum wanted, and what the school wanted maybe would allow me to do something in line with what my friends were doing. I still felt a bit different and left out because I wasn't doing the same as my friends.
If these testimonies aren't enough, let's talk numbers. Fane Street Primary is 74% not Protestant and 60% not Christian, yet they still have 30 Christian visitors come to their school each year. Ballysillan Primary has over 145 Christian visitors, even though 25% are not even Christian. In an effort to gain some understanding, I spoke with the principal of Lagan College, which was the first integrated school in Belfast.
It's not easy just to readily change things, Sometimes I think it's maybe generationally those who've lived through the Troubles that find it hard to see progress. It's set against the complexity of Northern Ireland's history, where we're trying to, in our own way, build a peaceful society where people understand each other better. Children are changing, society's changing, but it's keeping pace with something in a respectful way, so it's not forcing change. You've got to work at peace. Peace is like a muscle. You've got to keep on exercising and working at it because you can't become complacent.
And she's right. The history of religious education in Northern Ireland is an extremely complex and loaded topic, and we can't force people to change. However, this isn't about removing God from schools. It's about the integrity of educational institutions and their obligation to provide an equal education for all students. Your children deserve an inclusive and reputable education. They deserve to live in a reality where the past does not determine the future. It's time for Northern Ireland to decide what it stands for.